For 40 years, Helen Brooks believed she knew the man sleeping beside her. She knew how Robert liked his coffee. She knew he hated cold toast. She knew he always touched his wedding ring when he was nervous. And she knew he had loved her from the day they met. At least, that was what she believed. Then, on the morning of their 40th wedding anniversary, Helen took their wedding photo off the wall to clean the frame. A yellowed envelope slipped from the back. Inside was an old photograph. Robert was in it. Young. Smiling. Standing beside another woman. But that was not what made Helen's hands shake. What broke her heart was the baby in Robert's arms. On the back of the photo, someone had written, "Robert, she has your eyes." Helen stared at the words until the room blurred. Then she found the letter. And the first line said, "Helen deserves to know the truth before one of us dies." Helen Brooks had always thought of their hallway wall as a wall of memories. Their wedding photo hung in the center. Around it were pictures of their children, grandchildren, Christmas mornings, beach trips, school plays, birthday cakes, and the ordinary proof of a life well lived. 40 years. That was not a small thing. 40 years of bills, arguments, sickness, forgiveness, quiet dinners, and hands reaching for each other in the dark. Helen had not married a perfect man. Robert forgot small things. He avoided hard conversations. He kept too many papers in old boxes and never threw away broken tools. But he was gentle. He was faithful. Or at least, she had always believed he was. That morning, Helen woke early. Robert was still asleep upstairs, his breathing slow and heavy. He had not been well lately. His heart was weak, and the doctor had told him to rest more. Their children were coming that evening for a small anniversary dinner. Helen wanted the house to look nice. She dusted the shelves, polished the dining table, and finally stood in front of the wedding photo. She smiled at the young woman in the picture. 23 years old. White dress. Nervous eyes. Robert beside her, tall and proud, looking at her like she was the only woman in the world. Helen lifted the frame from the wall. That was when the envelope fell. It landed at her feet without a sound. For a moment, she only stared at it. The envelope was old, the color of dry leaves. It had been taped to the back of the frame, hidden between cardboard and wood. No name on the front. No stamp. Just one word written in Robert's handwriting. "Forgive me." Helen's chest tightened. She sat on the stairs and opened it. The photograph came out first. Robert, maybe 25, standing outside a small blue house. Beside him was a woman Helen had never seen before. Dark hair. Sad eyes. One hand resting on Robert's arm. And in Robert's arms was a baby girl. Helen turned the photo over. "Robert, she has your eyes." For several seconds, Helen could not breathe. A baby. His baby? Before she could think, she pulled out the letter. The handwriting was not Robert's. "Dear Robert. I am not writing this to ruin your life. I am writing because secrets do not stay quiet forever. You chose Helen. I accepted that. But our daughter did not choose any of this. Her name is Clara. She is 6 months old now. She smiles when music plays, and yes, she has your eyes. Helen should know. Maybe not today. Maybe not while your life is still new. But someday. Before one of us dies. She deserves the truth. Marianne." Helen read the name again. Marianne. She had never heard it. Not once in 40 years. The house around her felt different now. The same hallway. The same wallpaper. The same family photos. But suddenly, everything had a shadow. She heard Robert coughing upstairs. Helen folded the letter with shaking hands and looked back at the wedding photo. The young bride in the picture looked happy. Trusting. Unaware. Helen whispered, "Who were you before me, Robert?" Then she noticed something else inside the envelope. A smaller note. This one was in Robert's handwriting. I wanted to tell her. But every year, silence became harder to break. Helen did not confront Robert immediately. She wanted to. She wanted to run upstairs, wake him, hold the photo in front of his face, and demand that he explain the baby, the woman, the letter, and the life he had hidden behind their wedding picture. But Robert was sleeping. And Helen was afraid. Not of his answer. Of what his answer might do to the last 40 years. So she waited. She made coffee. She burned the toast. She poured orange juice into the wrong glass and stood staring at it for almost a full minute. When Robert came downstairs, he smiled softly. "Happy anniversary, sweetheart." Helen looked at him. His gray hair was messy from sleep. His robe was tied unevenly. He looked old, tired, and familiar. That almost made it worse. "Happy anniversary," she said. He noticed her face. "What's wrong?" Helen placed the envelope on the table. Robert went still. Not confused. Not curious. Still. That told her everything. "You know what this is," Helen said. Robert sat down slowly. His hand went to his wedding ring. The same habit she had seen for 40 years. "You found it," he whispered. "No," Helen said. "You hid it." Robert closed his eyes. Helen placed the photo between them. "Who is she?" He did not ask which woman. "Marianne." "And the baby?" Robert's face broke. "My daughter." Helen had prepared herself for the answer. It still felt like falling. She gripped the back of the chair. "You had a child." "Yes." "Before me?" Robert nodded. "Before we married. Before I asked you." Helen's voice trembled. "And you never told me." "I wanted to." "Don't say that unless it is true." Robert looked at her, tears in his eyes. "It is true. But wanting is not the same as courage." Helen sat across from him. "Tell me everything." Robert took a long breath. He said Marianne had been his first serious love. They were young. Reckless. Certain they understood life. Then Marianne became pregnant. Robert panicked. He had no money, no steady work, and a father who told him he would ruin every life he touched if he stayed. Marianne left town to live with an aunt before anyone knew. Robert said he tried to follow. Then he met Helen. "No," Helen said sharply. "You don't get to make me the reason you stopped looking." Robert lowered his head. "You're right." He told her the truth. He had been weak. He had been ashamed. And when Marianne sent the photograph after Helen and Robert married, he hid it. "At first, I told myself I would tell you after our first anniversary," he said. "Then after our son was born. Then after your mother died. Then after Christmas. There was always a reason to wait." Helen's eyes filled. "And Clara?" Robert swallowed. "I sent money." Helen stared at him. "Money?" It was all Marianne allowed. "Did you see her?" "No." "Did you try?" Robert's silence answered before his mouth did. Helen stood. "So somewhere in this world, there is a woman who grew up with your eyes, and you let her live as a secret." Robert began to cry. "I know." Helen walked to the window. Outside, their anniversary balloons were tied to the mailbox. Their daughter had dropped them off that morning. 40 years. A whole marriage. And now a child-shaped emptiness stood inside it. Helen turned back. Is Clara alive? Robert nodded. I think so. You think so? He reached into his robe pocket with shaking hands and pulled out a folded paper. I searched for her last year. Helen's heart twisted. Last year? When my heart got bad, I got scared. I hired someone. He handed her the paper. There was a name. Clara Whitman. Age 39. Address in Portland. And below it, a note from the investigator. Subject has one daughter. Works as a nurse. No known contact with biological father. Helen read the words twice. Then she looked at Robert. You found her? Yes. And still said nothing. Robert whispered, I was afraid you would hate me. Helen's answer was quiet. I don't know what I feel yet. Then the doorbell rang. Their children had arrived early. Helen looked at the balloons outside. Then at the hidden photo on the table. The anniversary dinner was about to begin. And she had no idea whether she was celebrating a marriage or mourning the truth that had lived inside it. Helen put the photograph back in the envelope before opening the door. Her children came in with flowers, food, and loud voices. For 2 hours, Helen moved through the anniversary dinner like a woman watching someone else's life. Her son gave a toast. Their daughter cried while talking about how Robert and Helen had taught them what love looked like. Helen watched Robert lower his eyes. He could not look at her. After dinner, when the grandchildren were watching television, Helen asked the adults to sit in the living room. Robert looked at her with fear. Helen held the envelope in her lap. There is something your father and I need to tell you. Robert whispered, Helen, please. She looked at him. No more silence. The room went quiet. Slowly, carefully, Helen told them enough. Not every detail. Not every wound. But the truth. Before their marriage, Robert had a daughter. Her name was Clara. He had known. He had hidden it. Their daughter, Emily, began to cry. Their son, Mark, stood up and walked to the window. Nobody shouted. Some pain is too heavy for shouting. Finally, Emily looked at her father. Did she know about us? Robert shook his head. I don't know. Mark turned around. You don't know anything because you chose not to. Robert accepted the words like he deserved them. Helen expected to feel satisfied. She did not. Truth did not make the room lighter. It only made it honest. That night, after everyone left, Helen sat beside Robert on the porch. For a long time, they said nothing. Then Robert whispered, I ruined our anniversary. Helen looked at the dark yard. No. You ruined the lie. He cried quietly. I'm sorry. I know. Do you hate me? Helen took a long breath. I hate what you did. I hate that you made me live beside a locked door for 40 years. But I don't know how to hate the man who held my hand when my mother died. Or the man who rocked our babies to sleep. Or the man who made me tea every time I was sad. Robert covered his face. Helen continued. That is what hurts. You were good to me. And still, you lied. The next morning, Helen did something Robert had been too afraid to do. She wrote to Clara. Not as a wife defending her marriage. Not as a woman trying to explain Robert. But as one woman reaching for another. Dear Clara. My name is Helen Brooks. I have been married to your father for 40 years. I found your photograph yesterday. I am sorry it took this long for the truth to find daylight. If you are willing, I would like to meet you. You owe us nothing. But you deserve to know you were not just a secret. Helen. 3 weeks passed. Then a letter arrived. Helen opened it with Robert sitting beside her. Dear Helen. I knew his name. My mother told me. She also told me not to hate him, because hatred is still a kind of attachment. I spent years wondering if he ever thought about me. I am not ready to call him Dad. But I am ready to ask him why. Clara. At the bottom was a phone number. Robert cried before dialing. Helen sat beside him, not holding his hand yet, but not leaving either. When Clara answered, Robert could barely speak. This is Robert Brooks. Silence. Then a woman's voice said. I know. Robert closed his eyes. I am sorry. Clara's voice trembled. You're 40 years late. Yes, he said. I am. Helen looked at him. For the first time in many years, Robert did not hide behind a gentle smile. He stood inside the truth. Months later, Clara visited. She looked like Robert around the eyes. But she had Marianne's strength. She did not hug him at first. She shook his hand. That was all he deserved. But before she left, she let him walk her to the car. Helen watched from the porch as Robert showed Clara an old photo of himself at 25. Clara studied it and said something Helen could not hear. Then Robert laughed through tears. Not healed. Not forgiven completely. But human. That evening, Helen took their wedding photo off the wall. Robert thought she was removing it forever. Instead, she placed it on a lower shelf. Beside it, she put the old photograph of Robert, Marianne, and baby Clara. Robert stared at both pictures. Helen said, our life was real. But it was not the whole story. Robert reached for her hand. This time, Helen let him hold it. Not because everything was fixed. But because the truth had finally been invited into the house. And after 40 years of marriage, Helen learned something painful and beautiful. Love is not proven by having no secrets. It is proven by what people do when the secrets finally come to light. Some marriages end when the truth arrives. And some begin again. Not as perfect stories. But as honest ones.